What's up guys, how's it going? Today we're taking on Mega Man, the first in this massive series, and the original Mega Man is known by many as the hardest of the six. And recently I've been working on getting through the entire game Buster only, so that means taking on all of the stages, Robot Masters, and the final 4 levels with their bosses, while only using your standard weapon. Another big part of this challenge is that there will be no use of exploits or any glitches, and absolutely no using the magnet beam to get through all of the tough platforming sections. There will be no cheesing of any Robot Masters or using the pause glitch on the Yellow Devil. We're going up against this game straight up and old-fashioned. Being that it is glitch-free and old-fashioned, we have to have quotations around Buster only because there are 4 moments we have to use Gutsman's arm, and just 1 spot where we need to use the magnet beam to reach the ladder at the top of the room. Everything else is 100% Buster only. Something else that makes this challenge intimidating is that the first Mega Man didn't have a password feature, so none of this progress is savable. But without further delay, let's get into the run. Basically, I'm just going to commentate as we go, in a similar way to that Donkey Kong Country Deathless challenge video. I think it overall makes for a pretty entertaining run, because we'll be playing through these stages and Robot Masters in a different order than you normally would. So we'll actually be starting with Iceman. In a traditional sense, you would never want to tackle this guy first, because he has a really tough platforming section that we'll get to later, that you'd always use the magnet beam for if you just wanted a safe way to run across this huge gap. But instead we will have to tackle that the old school way. And something else I really enjoy about this run is seeing on the stage select screen bosses being beaten out of order. I just think it's pretty fascinating to see certain Robot Masters blacked out before the other ones. It just looks bizarre. When you're used to beating the game the same way for quite a while, it really does change things up. It's honestly pretty nice that they do give you this large health bulb right here. This is another great example of when you could use the magnet beam and just throw a few of those platforms out there and make your way out, but instead you actually have to remember and execute with these disappearing and reappearing block platforming puzzles. Timing can be a little tricky, and it can take some repetition to get it down. And you die enough in that pit, you're going to have plenty of opportunity to practice these little block obstacles. So here's that tough moment where you have to go between these small platforms that shoot bullets out of their sides, and that stuff is hard to stay out of the way when these things can be pretty bizarre with how they fly around. Yeah, so I honestly forgot that happened this run. We won't be looking at all the deaths, we'll speed through some of them just to save on time, because later in the run I do actually take several game overs in a row, and we don't need to sit through the entirety of all those failed attempts. Usually that platform gap, it is a hard challenge, don't get me wrong. That was actually really close, I almost clipped that bullet, but sometimes they can fly at heights that are much easier to make your way across. Final one here of the first half. That was a long jump. Just went for it. It gets even harder here because they start throwing a penguin that will keep respawning. Just come in at whatever height you're at. Pretty tricky with all the bullets going on and those penguins. You could see why just running across with the magnet beam would make this way easier. And it's honestly pretty hard to get that one up there. I think I only got it once in the several practice sessions trying to get this Buster only to happen. And those Cyclops sure do take a lot of shots, and we get a lot of practice having to take those down too. You kind of hope that they jump high enough for you to run underneath, because it's really hard to mash fast enough to take them out before they get to you. But Iceman, I ranked him number 3 in the classic NES series for, like, in terms of being the third hardest Robot Master because those little ice triangles take 10 pegs of your health. You can definitely get used to the spacing and all that, but he is just a very punishing fight. And I was surprised to not hit anything this run. I normally got hit, occasionally died to him, but I guess on this run I didn't get hit at all. So it's pretty sweet to see Iceman blacked out, so unusual. We're going into Gutsman next, because in order to finish the game, we need his ability to grab the Magnet Beam on Elecman stage. I remember getting a little sloppy with these helmet enemies, but overall it's not too big of a deal. You know, they will occasionally drop their little health pickups, and it's not too hard to make it to the end of the stage, even if you do clip some enemies here and there. But this is the most infamous or notorious part of this level. A lot of Mega Man players have fallen to their doom here, just because the timing can be kind of tricky, but if you keep your eye on that track to see right when it's going to hit those darker spots of that track or line, that's when that platform just, it flings downward and you just plummet to your doom. But enough practice with it, it's really not so bad. And everyone loves these guys. Pretty annoying, I mean, if you don't take them out quickly, and as you can see they respawn at a few different points, so sometimes it's best to just keep moving forward. And these guys are always a good mash test, these miners throwing their pickaxes. Here's another mash test, just hoping that he jumps over, and there it is. Something kind of cool and unique to the original Mega Man are these hallways with enemies in it. They don't have that in the other ones. Gutsman is honestly not too bad of a fight. Like, sometimes I'm not the best at timing that jump to avoid the quake of him landing, just because it's so long. It's like, it's honestly a pretty tight jump. But he doesn't do as much damage as you might think. So, he is not too bad, as long as you just remember to keep shooting even if you are getting stunned on the ground. And next is the first kind of choke point of the run, in my opinion, is Elecman, because we go in there guns a-blazing. We don't play it safe. We do not exploit his AI whatsoever. And for those familiar with it, you can basically just catch him in this loop where he just continues to take a step forward into your shot, and that's all that happens. But we're not going to manipulate him at all. We're just going to go in there and fight him straight up. So he'll be full power Elecman, just jumping, running, and throwing those big ol' thunderous tumbleweeds that he likes to take away 10 pegs of your health with. This ladder spot, honestly not too bad. Just keep on moving up, shooting those guys. Coming up here on a little block pattern. In this platforming section, they like to repeat this later, which I always thought was kind of strange. It's not an easy spot, having to stop those guys and make those little jumps. Usually you'd use Cutman's ability on this stage and he wrecks through all of those guys, but here you have to be much more precise. And we have to use Gutsman to grab the magnet beam in order to get through the first Wily stage. But yeah, so Electman, pretty unique stage where it's about 90% vertically oriented. Kind of like how Crash Man is in Mega Man 2 or Boomer Kawanger in Mega Man X. That same little section. I'm surprised they didn't change any of those blocks up, to be honest with you. I'm just really confused by that. Couldn't get through the Cyclops without taking a hit, but it's not a big deal. I don't really expect at all to get through Electman with this amount of health. But, you know, might as well give it a try. Start to get used to him again. And this is a moment where you'll see multiple deaths in a row. I'll just clip to me dying, so you don't need to see me go through the entirety of Electman's stage again. So Electman's just wild. I mean, it's the pattern that you end up kind of finding while just going ham and shooting all over the place. You're kind of just hoping that he reacts the way you want him to. When he's jumping and throwing those big thunderous things that he throws, you can actually stand underneath them. If you're on top of the blocks, you have to jump over them. And there's advantages to being on the left or the right of the screen. But I started to learn a lot more about like little advantageous moments with Electman through this whole Buster Only challenge, so that's been pretty cool. He can just ruin your chances though, because it only takes 3 hits. And he sometimes will just jump into you, which doesn't do as much damage, but it sure does alter the fight when he's crashing into you and throwing that around. Just those big ol' whirlwinds of electricity. And this is where I won't have you watch this entire run, we'll just speed right up. I got close like a lot over the last several runs. I got close regularly, but he just wouldn't cooperate. So, the deal with Electman, I mean, you just try to react to what he does. And that can just be really hard. Because a quick reaction to one thing does not always cover what else he could do. Like, if you're jumping, expecting him to jump toward you and throw it, but he jumps away, you're gonna just die, take the hit. Electman's kind of just a fascinating boss when you're not holding back on your shots. He's just absolutely unhinged and crazy. But you see how I moved down, come down from the blocks, because I find it's easier to hold him at bay. And also, you saw how I moved underneath them. That was another thing that I've learned while fighting this guy over the last several attempts. Sometimes taking a step toward him even makes him want to jump away from you. So, get lucky there, he jumps back into his place, and we actually get through Electman. But I've died plenty against that guy over these practice runs. And I just think that's the coolest thing, seeing Electman, Iceman, and Gutsman all blacked out. Now, time to move on to the 3 easier ones. Let's go with Cutman. This is pretty much where a run would normally start. I think starting at Cutman or Bombman are the easiest ways to go about it. And I love, of all games to do intermittent commentary with. It's like, hopefully the game has a really good soundtrack, and with Mega Man 1 you know that's the case. Soundtracks for the 1st, 2nd, and the 3rd, the 4th, 5th, and 6th, they all have good songs on them. Like, there are some exceptional songs through 4, 5, and 6, and then there's just legendary status, especially on 2 and 3, but I love the original soundtrack as well quite a bit. There's plenty of chip damage that happens here or there, but at least we won't die. That just happens one more time before we reach the Dr. Wily stages. Cutman, Bombman, and Fireman, well, especially Cutman and Bombman, I am always pretty confident I'm going to get through those guys without a death, because they're just not nearly as punishing as Iceman and Electman. They're not dealing 10 pegs of damage, and you can get into a decent rhythm with them while they're jumping around and attacking. Although the original Mega Man is known for being quite challenging, at least they do have some big globs of health here and there to keep you going. The Cyclops, they really don't seem like they like to drop health very often, but we get a little one here. In this hallway, there are some alternating turrets. They also use turrets in Fireman stage. Here we are against Cutman. He was the first Robot Master I ever beat, and it sure was satisfying, and still is to this day. He has a nice fight. Jumping over the scissors and grabbing the power. Here we go. Top 4 blacked out. We'll just get Fireman over with and then finish with Bombman. Fireman has a somewhat challenging stage, honestly. There are some stages that these unlocked weapons help a lot with, and I always liked using Electman's, and sometimes Iceman. Electman is great because it's such a powerful weapon that shoots in 3 directions, wipes out everything. When you're doing it just with your Buster, you're a lot more vulnerable. You can't keep yourself quite as safe. And I think I jumped over that like one time during the practice. I don't know why. Just a annoying little jump. I usually get hit there. Speaking of places that's normal to get hit, at the end of this long room here, it's kind of close, there's this like fire wave obstacle thing. And, you know, players know what I'm talking about, but it's like really tight timing to run through it. It's this part that we're climbing up to. I somehow, maybe it's easy for someone out there, but I somehow get through both of these without getting hit this run. Like, that's crazy. In all the previous runs, I got hit by both of them. And then somehow this time I get by both. So that was pretty exciting. I don't think I've ever actually done that. I've only gotten through one a few different times. But yeah, those guys are pretty annoying. You can't take them out with Cutman's weapon. But we're just running to the door, and here goes Fireman. There's a common exploit with Fireman. It's not like he's hard to take out either way, but you can exploit him to not take any damage somehow just by maintaining this really tight, jumping in a straight line and shooting one peg at a time. Here we do it the old school way, just a firefight. We didn't even have full health, but we still beat him. It gets pretty hard when we have to fight some Robot Masters in a row later, since we don't use an exploit. And now we get to take on Bomb Man. Bomb Man was the second stage in Robot Master I ever took out. I actually played this a lot worse than normal, taking some hits, but it's no big deal. I basically never go down for that health, so just like whatever, not even worth it. We've got our guy that looks like Boba Fett. You just hope that he jumps and stops blocking all the shots with the shield. When he's jumping or shooting at you is when you get your own shots in. And it's funny how there's just like straight up bullet bills in Mega Man, but they're just moving up and down, so it's a lot different. This is actually a pretty big fail right here. Yeah, just a horrible maneuver. Just a horrible maneuver. I tried to press left and jump, but I just walked right off. But every so often, like sometimes when you're pretty comfortable with a challenging game, it'll just like humble you every once in a while. You're like, oh shoot. It's all fun and games until you're just dead. And usually I would push right and get that one up. I just kind of forgot about it. It's not a really big deal anyway. And that guy just figured, you're not even worth taking out. Let's just like jump past you. Go on to Bomb Man. I remember this was like not a good Bomb Man fight. Like I'm jumping and I'm just doing things that you don't have to do. I'm just doing the wrong move sometimes. And paying for it, getting hit by bombs, and yeah, we do get through him. I had a death against him on some other session where he hit me with a bomb the same time he blew up. It's kind of funny. Here we go into Dr. Wily, though. This is when things are pretty serious. So we have to go against the Yellow Devil, the boss at the end of Wily 1. And that's a serious roadblock to a Buster-only challenge. So are these guys. There's 3 of them in a row, and if you guess incorrectly or can't take them out before you hit them, you're gonna die because they take away 1/3 of your health. So getting by 1 is always nice. At least you know you'll survive for a little bit. Just one more of those moments where we have to use Gutsman's power to clear the way. Now here's an example though where you would use Iceman's to make this way easier. You'd freeze the spouts of fire and move safely, but we're not allowed to do that. Just very sloppy, but we got through. So we can rest assured that we probably die soon, but we'll fast forward just to save some time. And yeah, just being greedy, falling to our death. And forging onward to reach a checkpoint. They don't hand them out all over the place here, so like if you were to die here, you'd have to go all the way back. But we reach it soon. I think it might even be on the next screen. This is the 3rd time we have to use the Gutsman arm, and you can see there is a health at the top of the screen, but it would require the Magnet Beam and Gutsman's arm, so we just move on with low health. This is a checkpoint. Just trying to get these bullet bills out of the way. So this is a classic tough platforming moment from the original Mega Man that you would use the Magnet Beam for. But we are not doing that. And I remember that we do die a couple times. You can even get just brought right up into the spikes if you're not ready for that. This time I have a better jump. I'm able to grab the bigger health. And forging onward. They really entice you to use that Magnet Beam too, because these guys can really get stuck in some long loops not lining up properly, and they can make it really tough with how they're moving around and when they're shooting. I suppose if you knew that was coming, you would just jump to the right before hitting the spikes. But the good thing is the checkpoint is right before this pretty notorious little spot. If it weren't for the Magnet Beam, this would be pretty tough area. Except when everyone cooperates, then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so daunting. So this is where we have to use the Magnet Beam, the only time in the run. But you could see how helpful this would be across all kinds of tough moments in the game. With platforming, you can just take a free ride across a tough section. This is truly when boys become men, honestly. Buster only against the Yellow Devil is pretty wild. Some people, they insist on even using the pause glitch against this guy, but there's no easy way. You just have to get comfortable with jumping over these little specks. The good thing is it's always in the same pattern, it's just alternating from left to right. A difficult part about this, they're tough to avoid, but just as far as when you can attack, it's only one shot maximum between each of these waves, and sometimes his eye's at a height that your Buster won't reach. Usually you would use the Elecman weapon to get through this, which doesn't even wreck his health either. You have to hit him, I think, 7 times with that. But this time you have to hit him 14 times with your Buster. Sometimes you can't even get a shot in, which happens multiple times. It happens throughout the fight, especially a few times at the end. When that weak point opens at the top, very top of the boss sprite, you can't reach it. Yeah, I don't think that can reach. So that just means you can't even get rewarded for your dodge. You just have to do it again and hope that his eye will let you hit it. And as you can see, just the length of the fight and the fact that I know like we're winning and this could actually happen right now is getting to me a little bit, because I died a few times on this guy, like on just a couple runs before, like earlier in the week. So there's another example of shooting at the apex of my jump and it going underneath the weak point. So you can't hit him. You just have to make another dodge and hope you can hit him next time. And at this point, we only need to hit him 2 more times. So we're almost there. Only 1 more time. It's pretty exciting to get through the Yellow Devil Buster only, no pausing. Oh, and they're going to make me earn it. Have to do it again. Oh, they're really, really trying to make me earn it. As you can see, I remember when I was playing, I was like, oh, wow. And then I actually get hit. I'm like, please, come on, this time. Alright. The Yellow Devil is done with the Buster. Talk about a nightmare of a challenge, especially if you're like newer to the game. This guy already seemed impossible, just fighting him in the most optimal way. Unfortunately on Wily 2, we're not in the clear because you have to fight Elect Man before some annoying stretches of enemies that we're not going to exploit or glitch through. It's popular in these runs, in these Buster only runs. They use screen wraps and glitch past multiple sections, but we're just going to go through it, which it's ugly because they are sections designed really for you to use Elect Man's weapon, because there's just ladders and these vertical shafts full of enemies that you can't shoot at. But at least it's just Cut Man before Elect Man. They could have been more difficult with how they paired these guys. And these are just moments where you could use Elect Man's weapon and just blast them out, but we're not using any of that, so you have to avoid it. And then here comes Elect Man. So there's no stack of blocks, which makes me think, I guess we're going to have to spend a lot more time on the ground underneath, hoping that he jumps and throws it, because sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he will just blast it while standing. And rarely he'll even let it go a little too low if he gets shot a certain way and it'll hit you. So the really annoying part about this is you have to go back to the beginning of the stage every Elect Man death. This is where we're going to use a lot of fast forwarding and just kind of death montaging. Just showing you, I spent some time here. By the end of it, I had fought Cut Man what felt like maybe almost 20 times, so he was getting worked over consistently. These fights are too crazy to not highlight, you know. They just usually come down to the wire, they're so brutal. But with jumps like that, you have to go back and do it again. You are going back to the beginning of the stage. So that one hurt. That one hurt quite a bit. They're so punishing the way they just send you back to the beginning of the level. It's just so ruthless. We certainly don't have to watch all the fights in their entirety because that would take a while, but it is a pretty amazing challenge to keep going up against. But before too long, we finally have one that looks like it's going to finish all the way through. So that's a pretty good feeling right there. It's one of those things that you don't want to get sent back to do again. At some point, I did decide that I would only attempt to get through this stage with the full 3 lives after a game over, because getting through a Lekman on like your last life or maybe just one life left, it might not even be worth it. It's exceptionally helpful when he decides to just keep jumping backward, but gosh, when he wants to make things hard and shoot some from the ground and keep jumping into your space, it can get pretty tough. Throwing the little leapfrog technique into the mix goes a long way. Pushing toward him and getting underneath him is a huge help. Even great starts don't mean anything, of course, against the Lekman, because he can take you out quickly. But the long descent down this shaft results, of course, in getting hit a few times because it's just so cumbersome, and this is when you would want to use a Lekman's weapon to clear all of these. Getting a game over is, of course, no fun, having to go all the way back and go through all of this challenge again. Lekman specifically, just how impossible he seemed to fight straight up for years, but it wasn't until that Buster Only Robot Master 2-part ranking list when I finally realized like I was going to have to face this challenge, and he's been an interesting fight to dissect, but I don't want to completely neuter the fight with an exploit that keeps him in a loop, just taking a couple steps forward. Fighting him full power, you could call him a guns blazing Lekman. He's just one big piece of the puzzle though. We still have to get through the entire shaft of enemies, which can be really tough since it's likely we're going to be low on health at this point, or if more embarrassing things happen, like this shot. What a waste of a life right there. All of these enemies and obstacles. You start to get some hope, but you just got to stay cool, calm, and collected because you know that he and the game could just take it from you at some point. You just hope that you can finish out strong without just getting demolished. Basically, you can't overemphasize just how much Lekman's weapon would help during this section. So you're bound to get to the Mega Man clone without that much health. But the first time getting to him, just hoping for the best. Honestly, it can remind me a little bit of a Lekman, except it's not nearly as insane. But getting jumped into can be super annoying. And I get finished off. It just takes me a little bit of time to remember kind of the best way to avoid this guy. So overall, Wily 2 had turned out to be quite the challenge, just with how crazy a Lekman is and having to finish it all off after having to go down through all of those enemies before the Mega Man clone. But I can tell you that I'm quite proud of how this level wrapped up. It's actually quite shocking that I get through the Mega Man clone all on this first life. So getting through this level with Cutman, Lekman, fighting them straight up, and taking the abuse, making our way down to the boss, it's pretty crazy, because we don't even get there with any health. We just manage to keep the clone at bay, and somehow it ends up being enough. We don't have like any health right now. So it doesn't seem at all likely that we're going to make it through this fight, but just watch how it goes. I was pretty blown away. Like at this point, might as well just use this little bit of health to get familiar with the fight. That's what I was thinking, but the fight itself was going well. Or the clone was jumping away while I just kept peppering him with shots. You have to hit him 28 times. We get through the fight. Unbelievable. So getting through Wily 2 in one life, that's a highlight for sure. And honestly, I'm breathing like a sigh of relief because Wily 3 is going to be quite easy. I mean, yeah, we'll get hit along the way, and I don't even mind because really, this isn't that challenging of a level. It's a very short level, too. It really does feel kind of thrown in. It's crazy how simple it is. And I'm kind of messing around here, shooting some shots when I shouldn't be, because that's what happens, you get blown up. But this boss really isn't much of a problem at all. I make plenty of mistakes and we still get through it. I like jump into it like an idiot. I'm just making bad decisions, but that's how not difficult this fight is if you can mash. Like I jump into it again, making terrible decisions, but it doesn't even matter. Oh, jump into it again. But at this point, just need to take him out one more time, and somehow we're going to get through this fight. Playing very poorly. So now we're down to the last level in the game. This is when things get very real. Buster only with no exploits or anything. So we'll just fast forward until I'm actually playing. Toward the end of this level, you have to go against 4 Robot Masters in a row. There's Bomb Man, Fireman, Iceman, and Gutsman. And since we're not using any exploits, the fights stack together to be quite the challenge. It's honestly kind of inspiring to know that it's possible just playing like so straight up that you have enough in your single life bar to get through those 4 fights without getting anybody stuck. By the way, this is the last time we have to use that Gutsman power just to move this block out of the way. There are a lot of bullets in this hallway, but whatever, it doesn't really matter too much. We're just trying to get to the Robot Masters for a checkpoint. And here we are just getting impatient waiting for the platform. So this is another part that you could just use the Magnet Beam for and it'd be much easier. But you can do that just fine without it. And this is when I'm kind of realizing like getting that one up is definitely worth it. This is the last grind of the game, getting through these 4 fights, and my Bomb Man was kind of just messing around doing some dumb stuff until a few tries in. See, I even die on him. By the end of all this, I realized that running toward him makes this fight a lot easier sometimes, and I just kept running away. So we'll just montage this together so you can see how things went. We'll speed things up so you can see how things were going, but also where the deaths happened. Having Fireman in the mix here is really difficult because if you're fighting him straight up and not exploiting him at all, you're gonna rack up some decent damage on yourself. So as we go, my Bomb Man fighting gets a lot better, and the goal is just to get through Bomb Man and Fireman with as much life as possible. Hopefully more than just a one-shot from Iceman. And you can't forget Gutsman is after that, and he can be pretty difficult to not get hit at all by, and being ready to time those quaking jumps. But I have several deaths in a row actually occur on Iceman, where I just barely get hit, just not quite tapping the jump button enough to get over that big triangle. So you kind of just have to hope that he cooperates at the end of all this. A handful of these Iceman fights ended disappointingly early. Even if I get there with low health, I'd like to think I can push it toward the end, but I just kept dying early. A few of the same type of deaths too, just dying on that lowest triangle. For a little while, I actually had some pretty bad runs where I was not even making it past Fireman. I take several deaths getting to Iceman with not too much health. Fortunately, we finally come to a point where I'm putting together a run where I get through Bomb Man with quite a bit of health. I'm finally utilizing running toward him much better on the long bomb throws. Get through him without getting hit, so that's a good start. And then Fireman, it's about just trying to take the least amount possible with some jumps, you know, just spacing out, taking damage as I can. So we have almost half health, not terrible, but really we could get through Iceman without getting hit at all, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Just trying to keep calm and make it happen, keep the shots going while jumping out and back into that tight space, and we get through Iceman without getting hit, which is great. So we should certainly be able to make it through Gutsman with this much health, especially if we can time that jump decently, which we're getting down a few times in a row. We start to not get it, but then I'm realizing, well, as long as I keep shooting, we're going to get through this fight anyway. Things get kind of sketchy, but it's alright. He is the 4th of 4, and this is a checkpoint right here. So that is great. I'm thinking we're going to finish this run right now. Usually you would use Fireman's power and Elecman's, I believe, to get through this fight much quicker, but with the Buster it's actually not even too bad, because there's not even an invincibility period for this first form. You can actually hit him 3 times at the top of your jump with the Buster, and I suppose if you were really close you could do it even more than that. I'm just trying to get through it conservatively and safely. I don't want to get a game over and have to go through those 4 Robot Masters in that stage again. And now that I'm realizing how much damage you can put on quickly, I'm just trying to do my best without getting too greedy. Couple pegs in a row here. Get caught, but we're going to get through it. And there's still quite a bit of health left. And this guy, his second form really isn't bad. You just have to time it, which, terrible example there, but if you just keep stepping toward him every few seconds, it'll actually keep going over your head. So the final fight in the game actually ends up being pretty easy if you can get this rhythm down. It can be tense with that wild, dire boss music going on in the background and the fact you don't want to get a game over, but if you can remain calm, just keep stepping away and then back to him, you will whittle away that health slowly. Insanely exciting. Getting through Mega Man 1, Buster only. No exploits or glitches on original hardware. Just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Hope the holidays have been treating you well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next review, top 10, or challenge video. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great day.